real life. I am your host, Tatiana Monet. Yes, I am driving right now, but that just shows my level of commitment to put out content. If you're watching the video version of this episode, if you are not and you're listening to the audio version on Apple Podcasts, then you might hear a little bit of a difference in the audio quality. So with that being said, what I wanted to talk about on this episode was about being an older sibling. I'm the oldest, and for me to grow up with one sibling from both parents and then to have two other siblings that I didn't get to grow up with, there's many layers to that. So first I'll talk about just in general being an older sibling. There's a lot of pressure. You're gonna hear me honking, and you might hear me say some things as I'm driving because I don't like when people be just acting retarded on the road, and I know my late father would not want me to describe people as retarded, but you also raised me to call it like I see it. So mom, dad, sorry, I'm fussing folks out. But I won't curse though, because I don't want my mama trying to pull up on me all the way here in Atlanta from Chicago. Anyway, so being an older sibling, it can have a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. In my opinion, and speaking to other people who are older siblings, we're the guinea pigs. We're the test dummies. If you are somebody's first child, and I was both of my parents' first child, so whatever they had to figure out, whatever they, didn't do right the first time, and whatever that means, because you know what I mean, like that's a very ambiguous thing to be a parent. But whatever it was, we had to endure all of that. Them figuring out how to be parents, them understanding their kids for the first time. It's a certain place that you sit in, and it comes with a level of responsibility when you're an older sibling. And a lot of times when you see a familial dynamic, you're able to pinpoint who's the oldest, who's the middle child, and who's the youngest, because there's personality traits attached to that. And I definitely do possess quite a bit of those. I am very outspoken. I can be level-headed. Sometimes I can be too serious. I'm known to be the one that has responsibilities and stuff like that. Like, I'm the go-to person for everything. When I come home, it's like my mom puts me to work. At one point, both parents were doing it when my dad was alive. And I'm just like, I didn't come home for this. I came home for a vacation. Okay, I came home to rest, and I had a conversation with my godmom about it before, and she was like, it's probably because she has two kids, and so she was like, I expect certain things out of my oldest child differently than I expect out of my youngest child, even though there's still some common expectations shared between the both of them. And she was like, when you are that child, that parent knows, okay, you're gonna do exactly what I need you to do in the way that I can do it, and I can trust that it's gonna get done and in a timely fashion. That's why when you come home, you have tasks. It's not to punish you, it's not to prove a point or nothing like that. It's because they raised you to be able to handle certain things, and so now they're trusting the child that they raised. You're able to exude those duties that they know you can handle, and they don't have to double back and check on it or nothing, like, and they know that you would be resourceful and ask for help if you need help. Otherwise, they can count on you to take initiative and figure it out yourself. And I'm like, you know what? That is me. If anybody knows me, I try to figure out whatever I can on my own. I really don't like asking for help. I try to get stuff done in a timely manner where I'm not lingering on something for too long. I really don't like that. It's very annoying to me. I want to be able to just move on. I don't like being stuck on stuff. That kind of irks my entire soul. I don't have a phone mount. The one that I used to have, side note, I got rid of it because it started acting up, and I'm not in the mood to deal with that one no more. So I did get rid of it. So if you are watching the video version of this, first of all, Georgia is not flat. In Illinois, the land of Lincoln, You know, we are known, we're also called the playing field. Like we have a lot of flat land. So you're gonna see a lot of bouncing and bobbing and weaving on this camera. So, you know, hopefully I can enable the stabilize feature on this so that those of you watching the video version aren't thrown off too much. But hey, it's all right. You can still get good content. You don't have to look, you can just listen. But yeah, just being responsible. Like, heavy is the head that wears the crown, you know what I mean? Then when you have younger siblings that come up under you, that's another layer of responsibility. You have to look out for them. If they don't do something right, you're the first line of defense to make sure that it gets done, or to cover for them, or, you know, whatever. And some people have it harder than others. Because I grew up with one sibling, it wasn't like there was a lot to have to tend to. And plus my sister was a very cool sibling to have, like, where she wasn't like just in the stuff and real devious. Now granted, one thing she did do, she messed with my dowels. If you from Chicago, you know what I just said. My accent sometimes. So I said doll, but I don't normally say it like that. Anybody from Chicago, we say baby doll. So I had brat dolls, Barbie dolls. I had different, like, bunch of different types of dolls. Cabbage Patch Kid, all of that. I had all of that. And my sister wrote on a lot of them. Ripped the heads off my dolls. Like, out of all things that she did, besides not cleaning her room, I had to clean her room, she messed with my dolls, and that got me. But outside of that, she was an easy sibling. Like, I ain't have to worry about nothing. Granted, she would try to tell on me. I don't like that snitching. I don't snitches get stitches. I taught her that when she was younger. Because she would tell on me. Like, ooh, T doing this, T doing that, T was so-and-so. And I'm like, oh my God, shut it. Why are you doing this? We're supposed to be a team. I don't like you. So anyway, but when you are an older sibling, there's an aspect to it that when you're a kid, you may feel some type of pressure, but then when you're older, other things come into play. For instance, like, because I didn't grow up with two of my other siblings, there's like an innate response to want to connect things. Because as an older sibling, you're a fixer, you're a problem solver, you're a doer. You are expected to finish things, like close doors, tie loose ends, stuff like that, you know. And so a lot of decision making comes into play about how you need to handle things, you know. So I had instances where I was trying to, like, get the siblings together, you know, because we have different parents and stuff like that. That didn't work out too good. And that's just from family issues and stuff. It was no issues between the siblings, but, you know, it's just a testament to show you that the grass is not always greener. You know what I mean? Like, when you're the oldest, you are the one that sets an example, and you are the one that people are expected to look up to. It doesn't mean that you can't make mistakes, but it's like, when you make a mistake, it's like, yo, you know better, you know. And because you know better, you are expected to do better. Not that you should be perfect, but it's like, we raised you to have common sense. We raised you to know right from wrong, and you need to make better choices. Like, basically, we ain't gonna get no slack. When you the older sibling, you ain't gonna get no slack, because your parents got all the energy to chase behind you when you getting a whooping, fuss you out, show up to the school, whatever it is. Your parents got all the energy, especially like with me. My parents were young when they had me. They were 19 and 20. They had all the energy in the world. I could not get away with nothing. No. I will say that me being an older sibling, it has really, and outside of that, just my upbringing as well with my parents. I think that my parents should be raising other people's kids too. They're really great at it. because it's a lot of y'all half-raised individuals out here that we're forced to deal with in society, and I'm just like, I don't like y'all too much. But anyway, so how my parents raised me, how my parents taught me how to be an older sibling, it really helped me with how I take care of myself, being an adult. And I'm very grateful for that. You know what I mean? It wasn't always peachy keen. Like, some things I didn't understand growing up. Sometimes I felt like things were unfair. You know, I can always remember my mom saying, like, stop comparing your life to your sister's life, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but if she got to do this and I ain't get to do it, that ain't fair. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how our mind be thinking. It's like, man, younger siblings get away with murder. You know, that's not cool, you know. And when I got older, I was able to have conversations with my parents. And as of late, you know, more conversations with my mom. And she's like, you got to understand something. The older you get, the less you're in the mood to do. So it's not intentional, like, oh, we just want this sibling to just have an easier time. It's like your energy level changes. You become a different type of parent. And I'm like, okay. And that level of understanding I wouldn't have been able to really tap into had I not been mature enough to handle it. You know what I mean? And part of that is with my upbringing, but also with the personality traits that are assumed by somebody who is an older sibling. You know, also with being an older sibling, it's like you have this natural desire to want to make sure that everything is okay, everything is in place. You know, we tend to be very meticulous individuals. We want everything to have some type of order. You know what I mean? And that's because that was what's instilled in us, you know. And I see that in certain aspects of my life where I'm like, okay, when I'm at work, I'm always organizing stuff, putting things together. You know, when I'm doing stuff with my friends, I'm like, hey, I thought of this, y'all. Let's do this and this and this, you know. So it hits you in more ways than you expect. And some people really dreaded being the older sibling, especially if they had a lot of younger siblings, because they become second parents in a sense, against their will. Even though there were a lot of moments where, like in the summer and stuff, where I would have my little sister with me and she'll be with me and my friends. Like, my friends knew her like they knew me because she was around like that for certain aspects of my childhood. But what I can say is my parents did not force me to become a second parent to my sister. And I didn't grow up with my brothers, so I didn't have to mother them either. You know what I mean? So I do appreciate that they allowed me to still be the child and not a surrogate parent. But I will say this, there is a natural response as an older sibling to care for your siblings almost like they're your children. Like, if my sister's doing something, I don't care if I'm not your mama, I'm gonna say something. I'm like, hey, look, that, I don't think you should do that. That ain't right. That don't sound right. What are you doing that for? You know, and it seemed like I'm coming at them like a parent. It's like, I'm not your parent, but I'm your older sibling. So it's like, I should be the first in line to be like, hey, look, don't do this, because you have a warning. You have the privilege of having a warning. Somebody who done went through it before you did, and it came from the people you came from. So be mindful. I highly advise that you do this or don't do that. You know what I mean? And us older siblings, we don't get that type of privilege. We don't get a precursor or a template to follow. We are the template. We are the precursor, the blueprint, the whole thing. Like, we're not the whole thing, but like we're the foundation for how parents start to raise the remainder of their children. And some parts of me growing up didn't really understand it, so it was difficult for me to assimilate into that role, because when you're a kid, you have a certain level of mental capacity, and at that time I was like, it's not fair. I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do that? On top of the pressures that you have on you when your parents are kind of strict. Like, I have fun parents, don't get me wrong. Like, everybody that knows me, that knows my parents, loves my parents. My parents also didn't play no games. like at all. So for me to grow up in a household where, yeah, my parents had rules, my parents could be strict on certain things that I may not have agreed with, you know what I mean, which sometimes caused me to be a bit rebellious. That coupled with me being an older sibling, it's like I had a double whammy of rules and expectations and stuff like that. And that can weigh on a person, whether it shows up when you are in your development stages, or it could show up in certain ways as an adult. And it's done that in both ways for me. Looking back at it now, because I've had I've been equipped with a certain level of emotional management and self-governance, you know, and just looking into myself, being aware of me and what goes on around me. I can look at all of that and say thank you to my parents, because I could have grown up a whole nother way. I could have had certain experiences that some kids shouldn't have to go through. You know, like some parents, they aren't around their kids like that, so those older siblings literally have to cook, clean, manage a household as children. And I'm not talking about the working parents where it's like you kind of gotta have your children in a latchkey state because you have no other help or anything like that. Like I understand it may be difficult, but I understand stuff like that. But when you choose to not be around your kids and they're left for themselves to figure things out and to parent themselves, that's very difficult, and that plays on a person's psyche, especially those older siblings, because it's like you can't catch a break. Your childhood is diminished in a sense. Your innocence is stolen from you because you didn't get a chance to live those days out. So that can manifest and perpetuate into a certain type of adult when they get older. You know what I mean? Because they didn't have that. They can either be so serious where they just, you know, they don't open up about anything. They're really guarded, or they may feel like, okay, I'm the responsible one, so everybody always leans on me. And when I can't have a moment where I'm down, I can't have a moment where I'm not okay, because as many people as I'm there for, none of them can be there for me. You know, it's a lot that could come into that. And so that's why I appreciate when I have conversations with people and I find out about their familial dynamic. Like anybody that is in my life, I like to know if they have any siblings. If so, do they have older or younger siblings? How many siblings did they grow up with? Because it better helps me understand their personality. Kind of like when you ask about zodiac signs or where someone is from, the type of sibling that you are plays a part in that as well. So me being an older sibling, I do appreciate being an older sibling. Sometimes I desire to be a middle sibling or a younger sibling, and I say that because if you're a middle sibling, sometimes you can get away with a little bit. You know, you ain't got all the eyes on you. Like they're watching the baby because they knew, and the baby, you know, it's like, oh my God, the baby's here, you know, whatever. The older one, they watch it because it's like, we need you to help with the new baby, or we want you to do this the right way. I need your help. Go get this, go get that. Like you're the errand person, you know, the doer, the fixer, like I said. So sometimes with you being a middle sibling, you may not, because some people that I've spoken to that are middle siblings, you may not have eyes on you like that. You know what I mean? But then you might also have to be the one to rise to the occasion when you don't want to. And you got to either protect the younger sibling or defend the older sibling. You know what I mean? Or just take the brunt for both of them. Then I sometimes desire to be the younger sibling because it's like I would have so many examples and connections that precede me. And I would have, like, I sometimes have imagined growing up just having a slew of siblings. Like, one of my best friends has 6 older siblings. And I just be sometimes looking at her like, you so lucky. Granted, I love my sibs. I do. And she's the youngest. So she doesn't know what it's like to have a little sister. You know what I mean? So we both are opposites in that regard. You know what I mean? But to have an older sibling that you can call on, that you can vent to, like she's close with her older siblings, her sisters, and she's on the phone with them getting advice, all that other good stuff. It's like I yearn for that sometimes, you know, because it's like, who am I going to talk to that's been through it before me but coming from the same parents, I don't have that. And I'm not mad about it. It's just sometimes you like, you know, like sometimes the things that you don't have, you just envision what life could be like if that were the case. I am grateful for my position on it. I do like being the older sibling from the parents that I came from. I feel very lucky, very blessed, very honored, very humbled to have my parents and to be their firstborn child. It does come with some perks as well. You're the first out the house. You're the first birdie to leave the nest. And also, you know, rites of passage. You get to get those rites of passage. You know, like there would be times where my sister would want to come with me and my parents would be like, no, you ain't going with T. She, you know, she's a teenager now, so let her go, you know, blah, 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 whatever. You know, so those things were fun too, having little privileges and perks when it comes into play with that. I will say one thing that I have to endure being an older sibling now, when there is a loss of a parent, an older sibling can often be the glue between the other siblings because they've seen it all. So like, again, I have two brothers. Me and my sister did not grow up with our brothers, so part of me feels inclined to, even if they all don't communicate with one another, me being that person, that gateway, that gatekeeper of information and connectivity, out of anybody, it would rest on me, you know, because I'm the oldest. It's just certain things that come with that territory. So sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially when you have other family situations going on at the same time, and not just specifically about my situation. I'm just saying, like, in general, like when you're an older sibling and everybody else is getting older, people start getting into their own lives, routines and habits and stuff. Keeping people together can be a very daunting task at times because everybody's all over the place, and you have to be the one to remember everybody and keep everybody together, initiate the effort, stuff like that, you know what I mean? And another little fun fact about me too, I'm the oldest, like, of my generation in my family. So each generation that was born in waves, because for some reason my family had like a bunch of births in waves. I'm like, what in the world is going on with this? So you got like a big group of us that's born in the 90s, a big group that was born, you know, before that, a big group that was born in the 2000s, you know what I mean? So it's like every 10 years or so, or maybe like 5 or 6 years or so, you have a wave of kids coming through. And so for my wave, I'm the oldest of that too, on both sides of my family. So not only am I the oldest child to both parents, I'm the oldest grandchild to both parents, because even my parents' siblings, I was the first out of their kids too. And I'm the oldest of my generation for like both sides of my family, for the groups of kids that come in waves. So it's a lot. It's a lot. You know what I mean? And that may provide some transparency into my personality and why I act the way I act and why I am the way I am as I continue to evolve. But I wouldn't trade none of that for the world. I really wouldn't. Sometimes it's good to, like, some of my like God siblings or my cousins, like when we all link up, they're like, you know, we're so proud of you. You've done so much. To me, it don't look like it that way. Like sometimes having an older sibling, we have that syndrome where we know what we've done, but we look at it in another way. And so when you hear somebody spit your accolades back at you, you're like, oh, well, I was doing what I had to do. So I don't really look at it as like, oh yeah, like this is an achievement, this is a milestone. We look at it more so like, well, I was finishing a task, I was doing what I had to do, type of thing. And for people out there who are older siblings like me who have felt that way before, just know it's okay to sometimes think like that, but don't get stuck there. I'm practicing that as well. of appreciating myself, taking a compliment when it's given, and not just reducing it to, oh, I was doing what I had to do. I made a decision, I stuck with it, and I finished it. You know what I mean? I have to look at it as, you know what, nah, I did the daggone thing. I'm the bomb. I'm proud of myself. That was an accomplishment. That was a milestone. I'm gonna get my flowers, because not every, like, people ain't obligated to give you your flowers. So sometimes you got to go get your own. Go pick out the garden your daggone self. So I'm learning how to do that too. So to all my fellow older siblings out there, pick your own flowers sometimes, because you deserve it. You deserve to hear about the good that you do, and not just look at it as, okay, that's another task complete. You know, like, we got to shift out of autopilot sometimes without abdicating ourselves of our responsibility as being an older sibling. You know, and that comes with a level of discernment too, because we're not expected to act like anything that we're not. You know, there'll be times where me and my siblings would be like going back and forth. Like, I've gone back and forth with my brother, who is actually he's closer in age to me, and I've gone back and forth with my sister, and you know, different relatives will tell me like, well, you the oldest, so you know, da 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 da. Like, specifically, like growing up in the household with my sister, my mom would be like, there should be a distinction between you and her. When y'all arguing, it shouldn't sound like both of y'all are the same age. And I'm over here like, I can't fuss her out. I can't, you know, da da da. And it's like, no, you can't meet your sister at her level, because you're not there anymore. She's a certain age. You're not that age anymore. You don't need to get on the same page with her. You need to make the adjustment. You know what I mean? Whether that may be fair in that time or not, I do understand what my mom is saying. There should be a clear distinction. And sometimes it's hard to, I don't want to say defend your role as an older sibling, but when you're challenged on your role, or your role produces certain difficulties, it's sometimes really difficult to not just remain in that role. You know what I mean? And not have a moment where you're like, knock it off. Like, okay, I'm gonna argue back with you today. I'm gonna, you know, go back and forth with you today. We might fight, whatever. You know what I mean? It ain't perfect. It ain't perfect. But yeah, I wanted to, that was on my spirit to talk about on this shorter episode of Talk to Tot today, because that is something that is going on in everyday people's lives, is analyzing the bond and the role that they're in based on what type of sibling they are. And it's a true testament to your character in a lot of ways, based on how you were raised in that role. You know what I mean? Like, like half of my friends are older siblings and the other half are younger siblings. I don't really have a lot of friends that are like middle siblings. You know what I mean? So, and it's not on purpose. It just happens to roll out that way. Like, if you, and I got you some homework. The next time you talk to all of your friends, see what type of sibling they are. Are you the older sibling, the middle sibling, or the younger sibling? And you'll be surprised that when you look at your friends, you're like, huh, I'm hanging out with people that are like me. Like, most of my friends are older siblings. Or if they are the younger sibling, all their siblings are so much older that this younger sibling is kind of isolated by themselves. So in a way, they still kind of feel like they were that only child for a couple of years before that sibling was born, because their older siblings are so much older and they're so far removed. You know what I mean? So yeah, but I hope y'all enjoyed this content. I really enjoyed sharing it, and as I pull up at work and I look forward to presenting you guys with the next tidbit of information on Talk to Tot, real people, real talk, real life. Your beautiful, lovely, insightful host, Tatiana Monet, is signing out as I back into my parking spot. That's another thing too, y'all. I like to back in to my parking spot so that when I'm ready to go, I can just go. And I love my backup camera so much. I do. I wholeheartedly do. But yes, thank you for tuning in with me. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to comment on this video and share some insights, you know, if you're the middle sibling, hey, shout out. Let us know what your life is like. If you're the younger sibling, do the same. You know what I mean? I want to hear from my older siblings out there too. You know, so I look forward to your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please follow me on social media. My Instagram is Tatiana Monet. The podcast Instagram is _talk to Tot. My TikTok is Tatiana_Monet. And don't forget, this is streaming video version on YouTube, and the audio is available on Apple Podcasts. So until I see you guys on another video, be blessed, be safe, know your role, love your role, respect your role, and have a good one. Bye.